We'll be talking how highly sensitive persons such as you can do things on your own terms instead of completely avoiding or completely cutting out things in your life. Maybe you have even a pattern of radical changes to avoid certain environments, certain events, certain people, and why you're built that way. So today I will be talking about how you can approach this differently, how you can become more aware of where it comes from so that you regain more control of your life, feel more empowered, and feel more safe in your body that keeps giving you those intense sensations. Now, I believe that highly sensitive people have already so many amazing gifts, and most of us, all that we need is more awareness and more practice to use those gifts to your advantage. Because remember, I talk in my other videos, the fact that you have this intuition, that you have this inner core that is shouting at you so loudly through your senses and through your feelings, that give you a sign that something is off, that this situation is not good for you, maybe that person is not good for you. They're good, they're well developed, but oftentimes they're inaccurate, and oftentimes our actions that follow these choices, these resolutions, where we need to redirect action, they come to our detriment because we simply react through avoidance. Through our intensity of perception, of perceiving situations, through our senses. It could be through your hearing, it could be the amount of light, it could be amount of sound and people around you. We react to these various situations through the filters that we have in our mind, in our beliefs, but also in our body, that tells us something is not right for us. And because of the intensity of emotions we experience, the intensity of sensations, we want to get out of this situation, get out of this, from this person, get out from this environment as soon as possible, as far as possible, and never to come back, right? I bet you have gone through this once or twice in your life. I have had big crises because of that a few times in my life, that I swung all across away from caused me discomfort, or from what I believed was causing me discomfort. And because of how the brain works, which is it labels things, and your intensity of emotions is so huge that it places a lot of power, it places a lot of the label danger on what caused you these emotions, the situation that made you feel that way. And so you coded this in your mind that this is a one big threat. And more. Not only this is how your brain works, it also works in a way that it will generalize everything that is alongside what you remember. So if, for example, you went to a concert that was loud, it was a huge concert, it was loud, you were experiencing a lot of, let's call it pain, you know, because it's kind of pain. It was too much sound, too much light, too many people, too much emotions, too much everything, right? And you came home and you promised to yourself, I will never ever go into, I will never go to a live concert ever again. It was too much. And you decide this, you code this in your mind. You might not say it like that, but this is what your brain tells you. It just codifies, this is threat, this is bad for you, this is how horrible I feel. Now, every time you might have an opportunity to go to some concert, it doesn't have to be as big and as loud as this one, you might actually avoid these things. And even if you went to a quieter concert, more kind of low-key with intimate atmosphere, but because you've built up this old concert, this threat so much in your mind, you started resisting this. Through your resistance to that feeling, you've built up any concert. So you went to the smaller one, and again, maybe you had some intensity of emotions because of, you know, the spiraling thoughts and emotions that were feeding, that you were constantly scanning for noises, you were constantly vigilant, and that really spiked your nervous system response to even not such a loud environment as it was in the past experience. Now I give you this very extreme kind of concert scenario as an example so that you can see how our brain works. The truth is, you can probably remember similar scenarios, or maybe you never ever went back to another concert, even low-key and intimate classical music, whatever, you know, because of that initial resistance you built up after experiencing so much pain from the first one. And this is an important analogy for you to see how we generalize, we categorize and resist things. Then the choices that we make in our life without the required awareness, we never analyzed this. All we did is respond to our emotions. We reacted actually without thinking. We promised to ourselves, it's never going to happen. You become what they call radical, they call you dramatic, they call you overreactive. Because this is how we work. We react through swinging all the way to extreme situation and sitting there in a quiet corner for the rest of our lives out of fear that you won't be able to control this situation. Right? It's the lack of control and the lack of safety that made you experience that intensity in the first place. I really want to emphasize this more often, and I hope I will remember that it's the perceived lack of safety and perceived lack of control that will make you choose one thing over another in the future. So if the original concert you couldn't or weren't prepared to do anything in that moment, now in the next situations you don't have to completely erase the idea of any concerts in your life. But all you have to do is to figure out how, if of course that's what you would like to do because you enjoy live music, how you can do it on your own terms, how you can do it to still have a sense of safety. So how you can do it is first analyze what happened in the first scenario that made you feel so extreme. And the best thing you can do is to retrospect as soon as possible after the initial huge event happened, so that you don't build up all these stories and narratives and promises to yourself over time. And you don't start, fearing and resisting all these kind of events over time so that they feel like a threat. Now that you've retrospected about what happened, okay, I didn't have enough control. I maybe were squished between thousands of people in the stadium that left me kind of resigned to this situation where I couldn't get out. So going to that concert, I'm sure you can think of many ways right now when I'm talking to you that you can find some means of safety and control in that situation. You can think, well, I'm going to drive on my own, so I don't get stuck with a friend who doesn't understand my needs. That's one thing. You can think, I will go and sit next to exit. That's easy, right? You don't have to squish yourself and excuse yourself, or maybe explain yourself to a number of friends. Maybe you can even tell the friend that you're going with that if that's too loud, I'm just gonna go out, so that you don't get into unnecessary discussions and pull and push when you're actually all you want is just to go. Or what you can also do is just to make sure you prepare yourself about what kind of experience that is, what you can expect. And it's not just to control everything in your life, but it's so that you don't create unnecessary sense of victimhood and in your life from all these events. It's all that you keep some level of self-confidence in you. It's so that you keep some level of assertion in your life and don't just swing away from the things that caused you feel uncomfortable emotions in the first place, so that you can analyze, you can proactively think about what happened, what are my conclusions. Maybe you had wrong beliefs about this first initial concert in the first place. Maybe you believed that friend would be offended if you left them, so you decided to stick around for the rest of it when you could have just walked out in the middle of the concert. That could be one of the reasons why you endured and got yourself so infused with the sensory overload that it exhausted you, right? So all I want for you is just to give you the idea how you can build up your resilience, how you can build up your assertion, how you can build up your power in whatever you're doing. And if really something you don't want to do is that you don't want to do and you feel is actually detrimental for you, after analyzing and being self-aware, then of course you shouldn't be doing this. But not unless you have actually gone through the process of thinking and looking at your past choices, at your past beliefs, what led you to get into that situation in the first place, how you could have approached this differently, then that teaches you. You cannot go into that same identical situation and respond differently in the future. So you don't have to cut down all these events from your life, all these things out of your life that caused you some discomfort and become a complete minimalist, as many highly sensitive people are, because they're like, oh, this is causing me feel bad, this is causing me feel bad, I'm gonna cut out all these things, I'm gonna just lock myself in an empty room and resign to being in my own head for the rest of my life because I can't talk to people, I can't listen to music. Okay, I'm exaggerating here not to make you feel bad about yourself, because I've been there. You know, it's just I want you to regain as much power and believe in your own capacity to cope and to deal with various circumstances on your own terms. Like, I'll give you an example. The place that I live in a small town where there is a community of people, and I really love being around people. And I really craved community and connection, so that was important for me. Now, I also work as a creator, and I also work on my own passions. I like being on my own. I love walks on my own. I love reading books and spending time and listening to music, dancing on my own, and doing all crazy things that I just feel like because they give me joy. So, you know, going and meeting these groups of people, sometimes as nice as it was and satisfying in the moment, later I would have perhaps had a social hangover, literally. So I was really selective into choosing which people are the most precious for me from that group. And then when I would meet with them, it's always on my terms. And they know, I always tell them, like, I'm not feeling like going out, even though I promised I would go out. I would say, yeah, I decided I will stay home. And the funny thing is, when you choose the right people, you are authentic, you are communicating authentically to them, then if there were people that don't appreciate you with your all quirks, then communicating honestly about your needs filters out all those of people that would complain about you being oversensitive, that would try to convince you that you should go. But if you from the beginning get into relationships, or if you are in some relationships, you can say, we're scrapping all that and starting from the beginning. I appreciate my needs and they are like that. So sometimes I will actually have to excuse myself and leave the event, or I will have to do it in a different environment maybe than you would like to. And if that's okay with you, we can keep going, right? So being open about your needs in relationships with people is also how you can respect and honor the beauty of the instrument that you have, which is your body and your intuition, to following the life choices that are supportive for you, that are giving you joy, that let you feel safe amongst these people, because they won't be trying to force you into anything. You know, these people won't try to push you into situations that you are having problems with. And maybe especially if you have problems with boundaries, and I encourage you to be practicing this very firmly. But if you're still sometimes kind of on the fence, then surrounding yourself with people that don't insist and don't try to force you and don't try to push you is also supportive to your boundary practices, because they won't be pushy and insisting. So these are all the ways how you can think about doing things on your own terms instead of giving up entirely things that would leave you in a room on your own without anything. Unless that's what you really want, you can do that, but not by avoidance, not by fear, because that is detrimental to you. Ultimately, when you reduce all those things, this is unfortunately how many illness develops, because we put so much power into these things as potential threats. We have to cut out from our life so many things that we are left with very little, what we call variety, diversity, very little of stimulation that sometimes gives us the spark of life. You know, if you are constantly locking yourself in your head and in your headphones, then you actually decrease your resiliency. You become weaker over time. And this is the sad truth, because then we become overreactive. We can't control the world. So if you build up power about something in your mind to be a threat, and you can't control the situation, then you will feel entirely powerless in the face, even at the very short encounter of those events. And all I want for you is to become over time more empowered, that you don't have to resign yourself to emptiness and solitude over time, unless this is what you want to do. Like I say, it's all about intention and why we choose things. If we choose things out of fear and avoidance, this is detrimental for us. If we choose things because we want this and that, this is promising, this is life supportive, this is healthy, this is enriching. So all I want for you is to grow more awareness, grow more power, that you can use your beautiful gifts and report to me how great you're feeling by producing those amazing results and living an amazing, enriched life.